Today, I'll be sharing with you the 5 ETFs that I'll be including in my option selling portfolio for the first quarter of 2025. Each of these ETFs has a proven history of variance risk premium, or the tendency for implied volatility to outpace realized volatility. And by including these in my portfolio, I'm hoping to extract that risk premium over the course of the next few months. So let's jump into the computer here and I'll show you which ones I'm looking at. All right, so pretty much all the ETFs that I'm looking for are just found using my Predicting Alpha scanner here, which if you want to get access to, by the way, you can use the link in the description to get a 7-day free trial. It's pretty cool stuff. You learn the strategies. You can go check it out. What this scanner does for me is it calculates the average variance risk premium over time for the entire universe of ETFs. And then it ranks them for me based on which ones have been the most profitable based on a back test. Simply put, it shows me which ETFs are on average worth selling options on. So realistically, all the ones on this list make sense to do, but there are 5 that I have picked out which I'll be including primarily in my portfolio for the next couple months, and I'll explain to you why. So first up on the list here was USO. Now USO has actually chopped around quite a bit over the last few months, but if we look at things in recent times, we can actually see that the implied volatility for 10-day windows has pretty consistently outpaced the realized volatility. And the reason this is so important is that even though with this analysis we've done here, we can safely establish that there is a long-term variance risk premium for USO, I've wanted to know if the actual P&L we've had in the short term recently has actually been positive. And looking at this analysis here, it basically shows me that yes, it has. So looking at the variance risk premium, we can see that most of the time it's positive. On average, there's 5-point difference between implied and realized volatility. Coming down here to the back test, this is pretty much what I want my portfolio to look like, so happy with this. It basically shows me that, yes, we're actually able to monetize this risk premium after considering costs and delta hedging requirements, things that we would typically have to face. And then from there, we can see that in the short term, looking at a small window of just 10 days, we can see that the implied volatility has consistently outpaced the realized volatility, making me feel pretty confident about including this in my portfolio. So we're going to do a similar analysis for a couple of the other tickers here, which are the ones that we're basically looking to include. So taking a look at my scanner here, the next one that I would be looking at including is GLD. So let's come here and open up GLD. So GLD, very similar case, pretty good back test. And once again, we're seeing that implied volatility outpacing the realized volatility in the short term, which means even though, on average, ETFs have been in a bit of a rally over the last couple weeks, it's Jan 23 when I'm making this video right now, we can see that this is a case where the implied volatility has outpaced the realized volatility by a pretty significant margin, right? We're looking at about 3.5 points here. Now, the rest of the ones that I'm including, they don't quite have as big of an implied and realized volatility spread, but they are still good ETFs to include because they're really foundational. So I'll show you what I'm talking about here. So the first one on the list is going to be DIA. This is one that's pretty consistently towards the top of our scan. This has consistently been an incredible performer in terms of your back-tested P&L for selling options. And when you look at what DIA is really composed of, this is basically just selling vol on the market. And that makes a lot of sense to have on in your portfolio. A really clean exposure to the variance risk premium with enough liquidity that your costs are really low. So pretty much at all times, I'm keeping on either DIA or SPY in my portfolio. And the one that I'm leaning to at the start of Q1 here is DIA. Now, taking a look at the realized volatility and implied volatility here, you can see that they're pretty much the same right now. There's a 1-point difference between the two. But remember that we actually don't have a very strong signal in trying to forecast short-term volatility. It's something that's nice to see, but in the end of the day, the consistency of the long-term P&L for DIA far outweighs anything in like the next week, right? What we can't really say that, because the last week realized was higher than implied, it's going to be that way for the next 3 months. It's much more valuable to rely on the long-term averages rather than just what's happened in the short term. So DIA, USO, GLD, those are 3 that are at the top of my list. And the last 2 that we'll look at here are INDA and XLF. Now, INDA, this one is looking really awesome. A couple things to keep in mind here, or one major thing is that the average option volume is actually very low. So liquidity plays a big risk here for us. We need to keep in mind that we have to actually be able to get in and out of these trades. So keep that in mind, but I don't see why you wouldn't include this in your portfolio. It's been a really steady return. It's done quite well. The bid-ask spread being at almost 20%, it is very wide. That will be probably the difference maker in your P&L. But if you can manage to get good fills, this is definitely one that I would be including in your portfolio. Typically, I'm using 7-day strangles for my trades. Something to note quickly about INDA is that I'm usually trading weekly strangles for this ETF premium strategy. But for INDA, because liquidity really matters, I may take a look at the monthly options and structure a trade that is 30-day windows. Because even though I think there's more premium in the weekly options, right, a higher variance risk premium when you're shorter dated, the cost of the bid-ask spread probably outweighs any benefit I'm getting by going short term. So it's worth going out to the monthly options there, trading the 30 days if it's giving you maybe a 50% tighter bid-ask spread. So that's something to look for when you're placing trades for INDA. And then the last ticker that's on my list here is XLF. This is another classic one to include. 178,000 average option volume, $50 price point. So it's a pretty affordable ticker to be including in the portfolio. And if we open up the analysis, you can see that we're down at like the 19th percentile for vol. Pretty steady VRP over time. A really good backtest return. Like I want my portfolio to look like that. This is pretty much like my baseline of deciding whether to take a trade. It's like, do I want my portfolio to look like this? If I do, then it's probably worth including in my portfolio. And then once again, taking a look at the short term, we see that realized vol ticking up above the implied vol. We just had bank earnings and they were all really positive. So this short term spike in realized vol, I expect it to calm down because the earnings for banks is over. They all jumped in one direction. Makes sense that realized vol spiked up and now things should calm down for the foreseeable future. So a quick example of a trade that I'm looking at. This is one that is on USO. If I were to be structuring out this trade right now, this is pretty much what I'd look to put on. For all of these ETFs, except for INDA, I typically look at doing weekly strangles, so around 7 DTE, rolling them on Fridays. And this is what it would look like for USO. So I'm selling the 77 strike and the 82.5 strike. And something to keep in mind is it's important to try and get good fills here. We have a really wide bid-ask spread, right? A 75 cent to like $1.05. It's very wide. We need to spend time to actually get a good fill here. And I basically look to do this on every Friday. So I'd probably place a trade like this tomorrow at around market close. If you want to learn more about this ETF strategy, I'll actually link a blog article in the description below that will show you how to actually run this strategy in more detail. Basically, we're selling weekly strangles. We have a 90-day hedge, and we're just doing it on a basket of ETFs that actually have this positive variance risk premium that is made obvious to us through the platform. So there you go. That's the 5 ETFs that I'm looking to trade for this first quarter in 2025. Now, I may actually go beyond just doing 5. I'm a big believer in trading everything that has this variance risk premium. So I might get up to even having 10 or 11 positions in the portfolio for this ETF strategy in particular. Now, keeping in mind, I will want to keep some margin available for the earnings strategies and the other strategies that are coming out later this month as a part of Predicting Alpha. If you are new to the channel, please subscribe. And if you've been around for a while and you want to start running these strategies with us, click the link in the description, take a free trial. We can have a call. I'm very excited to have you on the team. All right. Talk soon, everyone. Take care.